Pig head. Jacob also didn't know about the changes happening inside his body as he was waiting for trouble to come because he thought it would not be this easy. But it never came at all. The pain slowly faded away, as he could feel fiery blood flowing through his veins. Half an hour passed, and Decker finally noticed Jacob was completely fine now. Besides his bright red skin, he didn't show any sign of pain or struggle as he kept staring at the void like he was oblivious to anything happening around him. Decker frowned a little because he thought this process would probably be quite painful. After all, the powders he mixed in that unknown blood were quite potent, and 2 of them were even highly toxic. That was one of the main reasons he was experimenting on others. Decker had doubts about these transplants after he acquired that journal, but as he watched Jacob was fine, his doubts suddenly started to clear, and they were replaced with ecstasy. Because if that journal was authentic, he didn't need to fear backlash or side effects. Just one more transplant. Decker's eyes flashed with resolution and deep madness. He quickly took the bucket filled with Jacob's original blood and poured it all into that blood container, which was now half. Jacob naturally noticed this but kept his calm. He knew something like this would happen since the entire process was remarkably painless, and in his view, Decker was a sadist who would not let this slide by, and he will torture him. After a moment, the blended blood entered his arm, and Jacob suddenly felt extremely lethargic before he lost consciousness. This time not because of pain but because of this combined blood, which was absorbed by his reforming heart. It seemed the actual pain started when the blended blood entered the system, and it also seemed quite intent that he become unconscious so quickly despite the painless pill, or is there some other reason? Decker mused deeply. He placed his skinny brown hand on Jacob's chest and observed something. After a while, he retraced his hand and mumbled, nothing out of the ordinary besides his abnormal heartbeat. So just what is going on? Abruptly, Decker opened the bag around his neck, and from deep within, he took out a gray-wrapped cloth and unwrapped it delicately, and from within appeared a white book. Decker instinctively looked around, and when he saw no one was watching, he opened it and attentively started to read it, page by page, again and again. The blood transplant continued for over 3 hours, and Jacob's eyes remained shut during this entire process. Decker didn't leave his place and, every now, checked Jacob's condition and carefully wrote it inside a green cover book. The white book was nowhere to be seen. After Decker checked the blood container was completely empty, he pulled out the long needle from Jacob's right hand. Jacob looked completely normal, just like before. His bony constitution hasn't changed at all. Only his skin remained rosy, nothing else. This made Decker even more puzzled because Jacob's body absorbed more than twice the amount of blood Jacob's body had previously, and it didn't overflow or make him explode. I think I need that thing if I want the accurate result of this transplant. Blood change is dangerous, and I can't completely believe my eyes are my own method. Besides, that thing will benefit the 3rd transplant, the bone marrow fusion. Decker's beastly green eyes flash. Since the 2nd transplant was seemingly a success, then I needed to wait for a year, and I needed to go myself if I wanted that thing, which would take me less than 6 months. Well, I still needed materials for the 3rd transplant, so I'll be back in 9 months, which is more than enough for this human to be ready for the last transplant. Decker murmured to himself. He turned around and uttered coldly while looking at the 2nd glass cell, "Pig head, put him into green healing liquid." The pig head's beastly eyes snapped open, and the light blue liquid surrounding it sank to the bottom before the glass cell slid open, revealing the pig head. Its pig eyes were utterly listless, and its black pig head was covered in black fur, which completely covered its neck and chest, while his torso was of a burly human male. Pighead moved toward Jacob, and with one of his burly, solid hands, he picked him right from his head as his large hand was wrapped entirely around Jacob's bony face. Just like a rag doll, Pighead put Jacob into his glass cell before pressing a green color button, and the glass cell started to close, and after that, light green liquid started to fill the glass cell from bottom to top. After Pighead was done, it stood there listlessly like a puppet, as if it was waiting for its following command. Decker quickly put his green book into a hidden compartment below the staircase without being concerned about Pighead's listless eyes. After he was done with it, he checked the bag around his neck and closed it after confirming something. He looked at Pighead and uttered sternly, "Until I come back, you'll stand guard here. Anyone besides me comes from that door, you will kill it instantly. After, every 3 days, drink 1 bucket of blue liquid. If that human slave showed any sign of strange movement, change his liquid to a black one." Decker repeated the exact instructions twice to Pighead, who just listlessly stayed still on its spot. No one could tell if it was alive or dead. However, Decker knew this Pighead was very much alive, and it could hear him loud and clear. So, after ensuring he had missed nothing one last time, Decker climbed the wooden stairs and left for his long trip. After the door was closed, the room descended into deadly silence. Pighead was now facing Jacob's glass cell, which was filled with a green liquid, with its deadpan pig eyes without blinking. At this moment, Jacob, who seemed unconscious, opened his eyelids, revealing his amber-color eyes filled with extreme composure. "I'm finally feeling like myself. 5 comments, 0 votes and gifts. An energy." Jacob had regained consciousness half an hour ago when the blood-changing process was almost done. But he never opened his eyes and remained stoic because he didn't want to give Decker what he wanted. Although Jacob didn't know how, after he woke up this time from his slumber, he could easily control his heartbeat and remain calm while his mind, which was a mess before, had become apparent. Jacob felt he had returned to his old, calm self. Perhaps it was this youthful body, the sudden shock of reincarnation to turn him into this mess, or both, but he couldn't control his emotions and was always on edge. Jacob has never been like this. He had a century of life experience while he was a wily old fox who had ruled over an entire weaponry empire of the whole world for 50 years after his groundbreaking discovery and had an ingenious mind. After regaining his consciousness again, he suddenly felt mentally and physically cold. This was also the most significant reason he remained so calm despite being manhandled by Pighead and even fooling Decker. This also gave him many pieces of new information, which Decker revealed himself when he thought Jacob was out cold. He never imagined that Jacob could fool him so easily. Moreover, Jacob discovered his ears and nose had become even more potent than before, and now that he had finally opened his eyes, he could clearly see despite surrounding by this green liquid. Is it because of that mysterious blood that little shit found from a pit? Jacob's attention was automatically drawn to that mysterious blood that the little devil found in a pit and pumped it into his body. This also made Jacob instantly think about cold-blooded species. He was very knowledgeable about cold-blooded species because he had researched and designed an anti-infrared technology that can see through both warm-blooded species and cold-blooded species even in icy water. Well, it doesn't matter anymore since this helps me, and I must reevaluate my views about this mysterious world. I can't use my common sense from my previous world here. This place probably had magic as well, which is like a myth in my previous world, Jacob passively mused. Then his eyes landed on the tall, burly figure, which was listlessly standing 2 meters away from his glass cell. He was still shocked and amazed by the sight of it and wondered, just how did that little devil make him, or was it also a slave from a special species? Nonetheless, Jacob clearly remembered what Decker had commanded Pighead, what to do in case he showed any movement, and wondered what that black liquid would do to him. But he was sure about one thing, Decker would not harm him before collecting whatever result he wanted. Maybe that black liquid can put me to sleep like sedatives. So Jacob concluded, but he soon remembered he couldn't move because of mysterious reasons. Yet, at this moment, Jacob suddenly felt something strange inside him out of the blue. It was right inside his heart, and when he focused on that spot, he suddenly felt something had moved a little. However, it wasn't tangible like an object. It was more ethereal. Jacob was naturally astonished and focused more on his heart, and he felt something reposed with the slightest movement as if it wanted him to control it. Just what is it? Jacob wholeheartedly focused on moving whatever this thing was. It was not like he had something else to do at this moment. Dash dash dash. 3 days pass. Jacob was still entirely focused on moving whatever was inside his heart, without caring about any time or fatigue. He also discovered this green liquid was marvelous because he didn't need to breathe. Secondly, he didn't feel fatigued or need to sleep and could easily concentrate. Most importantly, he didn't feel hungry. This dramatically alarms Jacob when he thinks his conjecture about this world is far more advanced than his previous world was likely true. He still doubted whether his theory of magic was fundamental or not, though. Besides, it wasn't his focus right now, as he was utterly trying to move whatever was inside his heart like he was possessed. Dash dash dash. Day 7. Jacob could finally move whatever was stuck in his heart, but he could only move it 1 centimeter upward. So it didn't even leave his heart area, but Jacob was still quite happy with his progress. Dash dash dash. Day 35. Jacob could finally move this ethereal freely around his left chest area. He also found out this thing wasn't inside his blood, but it was like something transparent because with all those veins and muscles, he moved it in any direction, and he had a proposition that he could even summon this thing outside his body. However, its origin was still a mystery to him. But Jacob also discovered that after this thing left his heart, he could clearly feel the area wherever it goes, like his blood circulation, veins, bones, and muscle fiber, like he was seeing them. This was his most significant discovery, which left him in both shock and excitement. He suddenly felt this thing was not normal, and it might help him in his current predicament. But he knew this was merely his feeling, which he desperately wanted. However, he still didn't lose hope and controlled that thing again. Dash dash dash. Day 50. Jacob's eyes were tightly shut, just like always, as he was deeply engrossed in himself. A new discovery today that after his long practice, he could finally move that strange energy to his left forearm. Jacob started calling whatever this thing inside him was energy, because it could freely move inside his body with no barrier whatsoever, and this energy also had strange properties. However, he still wasn't sure if this energy was really moving without a path after his recent discoveries. 1 comments, 0 votes, send gifts. A sliver of hope. Only this energy can give him an accurate feeling of his inner body, but I could also move freely in the same section of his body that this energy crossed after Jacob's weeks of practice. It was like he was opening block paths or just forging alternative pathways inside his body for this energy that was born in his heart. Right now, the energy was slowly moving toward Jacob's hand from his left forearm. If he wanted to retract it, he could easily do it while taking the same path it came from. However, he won't do it because he wants to see what will happen when this strange energy enters his palm or fingers. Will it come out, or was it something else, not just an energy? Jacob had many questions like this, and one of his biggest fear was this energy was actually the bloodstorming bug that once entered his heart. But he was uncertain about it because he didn't know what had happened after passing out that day. He didn't see the bloodstorming bug coming out of his body that day, but he felt that it wasn't coming out, but deep inside, he didn't want that at all. Because if it was the bloodstorming bug, he might not be able to control it after it came out of his body or even harm him. He wanted this thing to be energy like magic or something like that, just as he read in all those novels. Nonetheless, he was willing to take this risk because this might be his only way out of there, or Decker might kill him after getting satisfactory results. Dash dash dash. Day 53 days. The energy finally entered Jacob's palm this day, and when he moved it toward his thumb. However, at this moment, he could finally measure its accurate length. It was only 3 inches long, while its width he had found out 2 days ago that it was as thin as a hair strand or probably thinner. As for how he found out, he had seen it with his own eyes. Then, 2 days ago, he caught a glimpse of it in the reflection of his glass cell, but only for a moment. But it was enough for Jacob to see a very thin line moving toward his hand, just like one of his veins. This also relieved Jacob that it wasn't that bug, and he thought Decker didn't leave it inside his body. Which also raised the same question again. Just what was it? Could it really be energy like magic or mana? Although Jacob was a little afraid, he was also excited. His old heart was filled with anticipation. He wanted it to be something like magical energy. At this moment, the energy has ultimately reached the tip of his thumbnail. However, it didn't go further. No matter how much Jacob focuses, it just won't budge from that spot. Which made Jacob's heart sink, and all his hopes were shattered. However, at this moment, something happened that caught Jacob entirely off guard. His thumb suddenly twitched. Jacob's pupils dilated and shimmered with sudden realization. He again tried to move his hand, but it was still stuck like always. Finally, when he focused on his thumb, he could quickly move it around free, but it wasn't completely free, and only the part which was covered with that strand of energy was completely free. But this much was enough to make Jacob almost mad with ecstasy because, from the moment he came into this world, he was never able to control his body except his eyelids and eyeballs. Some mysterious power constantly restricted him, and his absolute control was in Decker's hand. However, now suddenly, he managed to move his thumb without restriction. This naturally left him with great delight. Yet, his excitement didn't last long as he returned to his calm self. He quickly retracted that energy in the center of his palm and sent it toward his index finger. He wanted to ensure that this energy could free him from this mysterious restriction. But, unfortunately, after the energy left his thumb, it returned to the same restricted self, and Jacob was again helpless as before. However, he only paid attention momentarily to this and again turned his focus toward his index finger. After a while, the energy finally reached his index fingertip and was again blocked from coming out. But Jacob's focus wasn't on it. After he tried to move his index finger, he was elated when his index finger curved slightly under his control. So, this sliver of energy can really render these restrictions useless, but it's only a sliver, and I can't seem to be able to increase it, and I can only move it around my body. Jacob was perplexed. He felt just like someone who had just seen a ray of light but found out there was a bottomless abyss between him and that light. Suddenly, a thought surfaced in Jacob's old mind: this restriction is not physical, then it had to be abstract, right? Since I can examine the inside of my body with this energy, can I find that mysterious restriction place of me with it and even fight it with this energy? Jacob's eyes brightened at this moment, and even his heartbeat increased significantly. He just couldn't get this thought off his head after it came. Without hesitation, the sliver of energy returned to the heart at a lightning-fast speed. This was one of the reasons Jacob felt this wasn't some bug or anything. He could retract it with just a thought, and its speed was almost unimaginable inside his body. That's why he thought of it as mysterious energy and magic. Nonetheless, it wasn't his main concern right now. So he tried to send this energy toward his head where the restriction was, and he was 100% sure about it. However, the moment the energy tried to go upward from his neck, it suddenly stuck there as if a mysterious barrier was stopping it. Jacob had never had this kind of feeling before, and he knew something was not right. 1 comments 0 votes send gifts. Finding a path. Jacob focused all his willpower on the sliver of that mysterious energy and tried to move it upward toward his neck, but no matter how much he tried, he met with some invisible barrier. Suddenly, Jacob opened his eyes and saw a little bit of red flowing in the green liquid right in front of him. Blood. Jacob quickly found out where this blood come from. It was from his nose. He won't have known if he didn't feel warm on his nose so suddenly. Is it because I was forceful with that energy just now? Jacob could only think of this plausible explanation. Although he wasn't entirely sure, he didn't dare to take any more chances. He still didn't know what this energy was or even if it was energy to begin with. He didn't want to cause too much self-harm, which he couldn't comprehend. But why is it resisting in this area while I can easily move it to the other part of my body? Jacob fell deep in thought. Could it be? It's not moved freely around as I thought and follows some kind of vine channel, and it follows some kind of pattern, like what was it called again? I clearly remember reading it in the old Buddhist medicine when searching for a way to extend my lifespan, chakra points, right? Jacob remembered something like chakra points that exist in legends at this moment because he was obsessed with extending his lifespan, and there wasn't anything he hadn't read that could help him prolong his life. It was another story, though, since nothing worked in the end, and all those legends have very minimum effect on over 90 years old Jacob. He was left with only one choice: to use all his influence, favors, and a massive chunk of his wealth to buy advanced machinery just to live like a living corpse. However, even advanced medication wasn't able to save him from death. But there were only 7 main chakra points, and they're all located in the torso and head, which means it possibly can't be legendary chakra points. Then there were also meridians points which were also related to inner energy as well. Jacob mulled over the information he had collected and read in his past life. But he didn't remember anything clearly, since it was tens of years ago. He only remembered superficial information. Sigh, well, it's not like I need some proof or anything, nor did I have the luxury of time to think over all these legends. Let's see. Even if this energy is following chakra points or meridian points, then I think first I needed to circulate this energy all over my body just like my arm and then try to go for my neck and head. Jacob simply went for it since he won't lose anything by doing this, and he might be able to succeed in the end. It's not like he had somewhere to go right now. He was just floating inside a glass cell. Thereby, Jacob again sent the energy toward his left hand and paved the way for the energy into his other fingers. It was day 65 since Decker was gone. Pighead would move toward a small metal door on the floor every 3 days, right in the center corner between 2 glass cells. He would open it, fill a rope bucket of blue liquid from inside, and then drink it before returning it to his old position and staring at Jacob's naked figure floating in green liquid with his listless pig eyes. One very noticeable thing about Jacob's glass cell was that the light green liquid inside had become lighter as if it was losing its potency slowly. Jacob also started to feel sleepy because of it, and he would sleep after doing his daily routine of carving a path for the sliver of energy inside his body. Jacob naturally noticed the change in green liquid and started to feel dread when he thought about the possibilities after this green liquid completely lost its effects. He couldn't help but thought that he would die of hunger or drowning. Although he didn't feel hungry or need to breathe inside this green liquid, it would still lose its effect, just like medicine, and it needed to be refilled. He even wonders if Decker will be back before he dies tragically. However, he didn't put his hope on Pighead because, after observing him for over 2 months, he knew this guy was a complete idiot with no will of his own, just like a puppet who followed orders blindly. However, he strongly didn't want Decker to come back, not before he clarified his theory about this energy. Jacob noticed that after he was done with his left hand, his progress of carving a path in his right hand was much faster, and today he finally completed it. Now he was going to start working on his torso and legs without any delay. Day 134, it was over 4 months since Jacob and Pighead were left alone in his darkroom. It wasn't dark before, though. But, just a few days ago, the source of light, which looked like a bulb, suddenly dimmed down and stopped working altogether, making the entire place descend into darkness. But for Jacob or Pighead, this didn't make any difference. Jacob started to sleep for over 10 hours because the effect of that green liquid was becoming vaguer and vaguer. However, Jacob still didn't feel any hunger or feeling of drowning, which made him reach an astonishing conclusion that after this green liquid completely turned transparent, he might fall into complete hibernation. Because Jacob always fell into a long sleep without even him noticing, which left him started for some time, but he soon saw that it was probably because of this liquid he was floating in, and it might have different effects from his assumption. 2 comments 0 votes send gifts. Restriction and freedom. This extirpated Jacob's fear of dying out of hunger or drowning, but this also put an unknown fear in his heart. If he fell into hibernation, then he won't probably be able to wake up on his own, which also meant only Decker would be able to wake him up once he came back. Jacob didn't want that at all because he was so close to completely circulating the sliver of energy into his body. Only half of his right leg remained, and he knew it would mostly take him a week to complete it as well. He could not rest if he didn't see the result of his theory, which was also the only hope of leaving this place alive. Even if this hope was based on his delusion, it was still hope that kept him going. Although I can't do anything in this darkness, I think I slept for 13 hours this time, or probably less, or might be more. This gives me probably 30 or 40 more days before I might fall into hibernation. Fuck if that pig idiot just refilled this green liquid. Jacob cursed Pighead in his mind before again turning his focus on doing his labor again. Day 148. 2 more weeks passed, and Jacob's right hallux was moving up and down as Jacob was quite excited about this moment. It was clear that he had finally been able to move the sliver of that mysterious energy all over his body, and only his neck and head were left. The moment of truth. Jacob's heart was galloping at this moment. With a thought, the energy moved back to his heart from his big toe. He didn't immediately send it toward his neck. He decided to circulate the sliver of energy in his entire body before going toward his neck, forming a pentagram just for a silly reason, which was that he read in a novel once. Jacob slowly controlled the energy and started with his left arm before going to his right arm and left leg. He didn't feel a damn thing, making him silently blush. I should have never believed in those damn stories. Jacob didn't dwell on his embarrassment for too long, quickly controlled the energy, and slowly moved it toward his neckline. Jacob's eyes instantly contrasted when the energy didn't meet any barrier like last time. Ha ha ha, so, I was right about my approach. Jacob was elated and wanted to laugh out loud, which was out of his character. But who could blame him since this little success meant there was still hope for him? Jacob quickly settled himself down and crawled the energy toward his head. He thought it would also cost him some time, but to his astonishment, the energy moved toward his head with no restriction or need for an alternative path, making him even more excited. When the energy reached his skull area, Jacob thought it might come out of his mouth, but it didn't, and as it was moving to the back of his skull, Jacob quickly restrained his ecstasy and observed his head very thoroughly. He knew the restriction placed on him was probably here. Nothing in the back of my head. Jacob found nothing behind his skull area, which was the most expected area where the restriction might be, but it wasn't. However, Jacob wasn't disheartened and moved the energy toward the top of his skull, and he met with the same disappointment. Jacob was a bit panicked, but he still didn't lose hope and commanded that energy to move toward his forehead. At this moment, when the energy was right above his glabella, it suddenly met with a barrier that wasn't a natural one Jacob felt from his body. Jacob's eyes instantly flashed with a sharp light. Found you. He was 100% sure that he had finally found the thing restraining him because he had been controlling this energy for months now, and he knew how it felt like when he met with a natural barrier or blocked pathways. This thing wasn't a barrier nor a pathway. There was something solid, and he even felt the energy jolted a little when it touched it. That was why he was entirely sure he had found the thing he was looking for. First, Jacob looked right toward Pighead, who was invisible in this darkness, but he knew he was there, and every 3 days, he could hear him moving and drinking his tonic. I don't know if this pig can see me or not. If he can, then he'll do as Decker command him and release that black liquid, and if he doesn't, then, well, I don't know what he will do without Decker's control, but I won't shun this chance of freedom. Well, it was still unclear if I will gain freedom or not, so there is no need to burn my brain cells on this. Without hesitancy, Jacob again made the energy to move in the same path, and this time he felt clear that something was in his glabella, and for some reason, the energy could tremble. However, Jacob suddenly felt a piercing pain in his brain that he wanted to scream, yet he couldn't, but sudden lunacy overcame Jacob's eyes as he used more force and rattled that thing which was in his glabella. Suddenly, Jacob felt his lip moving as the liquid entered his mouth. He quickly closed it since he was still inside the liquid. He had instinctively opened his mouth because of the pain. But he quickly reacted and controlled it. The good news was this thing was losing its control over his body. However, this excited Jacob as he helter-skelter tried to push that thing from its place even more fiercely while completely ignoring the pain. This pain wasn't half as painful as the pain he experienced when he first was awake with his entire torso open, nor was it even close to the pain bloodstorming bug caused. Jacob knew this pain was the price of his freedom and he'll pay it no matter the amount. Jacob continued to clash the energy with whatever was on his forehead without even stopping for a moment while continuing to endure maddening pain. He could feel this thing had taken root in his skull just like a parasite plant, and he had had to uproot it. As he was shaking the thing inside his head, he slowly gained control over his limbs. Jacob used his full force and tried to move his hand. He knew this energy wasn't enough to uproot the thing in his head. Now that thing wasn't in complete control of his entire body. He wanted to take this chance to use his hand. With extreme difficulty, his right hand finally moved. It was as if Jacob was possessed by lunacy and didn't care about anything or any consequences. All he wanted was freedom from this hellhole, and he will do anything to gain it. Finally, his head reached his forehead while continuing to tremble. Just give up. Jacob's eyes were utterly bloodshot as he stabbed the nails of his thumb and index finger into his glabella with no mercy. Blood got blended into an almost transparent liquid at this moment. Jacob suddenly felt his index finger's nail touch something solid, and he ruthlessly clawed it. This time, Jacob felt his entire brain jolt as that thing finally uprooted from its place. However, Jacob was in a frenzy and didn't let this chance go. With both fingers, he clawed whatever had come off from his skull and pulled it back with a small chunk of his forehead skin. Jacob suddenly felt he had just regained complete control over his body, but he was too tired and fell into slumber without even looking at the thing he was tightly clenching in his fist. The opening on his forehead suddenly healed because of the green liquid. As for the mysterious energy which made all this possible return to Jacob's heart without his command, it didn't come out of that opening. However, Jacob didn't know about it at all as he fell into a deep slumber in the crimson liquid with a clenched hand and a faint smirk on his lips. As for Pighead, just as he expected, he didn't notice his movements at all in this darkness and remained standing still. However, after the wound on Jacob's forehead was completely healed, the green liquid completely turned transparent or crimson since Jacob's blood was blended within now. The main point was that Jacob was now in a state of hibernation after finally being free. What a tragedy. 4 comments 0 votes send gifts. Awakening. 4 months later, after Jacob fell into hibernation. The voice of tiny footsteps could be heard inside a dark silent room. Thereupon, the door that had closed for over 8 months made a creaking sound of opening. A surprised yet husky voice sounded at this moment. What happened to the light pearl? Did it run out of energy? If Jacob were awake, he would have instantly recognized that husky voice. This was indeed Decker, who had come back after his long trip. A white light suddenly illuminated the small room from the staircase at this moment. Pighead could be seen standing listlessly right before Jacob's glass cell. He didn't attack Decker because of their connection of master and slave or the moment the door opened. The intruder would have been dead by now if it wasn't Decker himself. Decker slowly descended the stairs. He wore a black cape that was drenched with water, clearly implying that he had just traveled in heavy rainfall. However, Decker's green beastly eyes suddenly went wide when he saw the glass cell filled with crimson color, and Jacob was vaguely visible. His heart sank as he yelled in an infuriated manner, "What the hell happened to him? Didn't I clearly say if you see any strangeness with him, you just have to release the black liquid quickly? Are you dead, you pig you're chode?" Decker viciously kicked Pighead's leg, which was twice his size, and Pighead reaming, standing like a tower without any expression of pain or distress. Decker knew he was just egging a stone wall, and he wasn't a Pighead match at all, which made him even more infuriated. It must be because of that fucking light pearl. Fuck, what bad luck. Decker regained his rationality quickly. He knew Pighead was just an empty husk, and he couldn't expect him to do something rational of his own free will. Suddenly, Decker's long ears twitched as his expression turned into astonishment and ecstasy. His heart is beating. He's alive. Decker strode toward Jacob's cell and pushed a bronze button. Thereby, the red liquid started to sink into the bottom. Decker felt immense relief when he saw Jacob's face, which was completely fine, and he started to breathe normally. Was it some side effect of blood change? It was indeed the right decision to get a bloodline scanning scale. I won't be able to find accurate results without it. Decker felt quite pleased with himself as he looked at the large bag under his cloak. Before, he was startled by Jacob and forgot about the weight on him. Now that he knew Jacob was fine, he finally relaxed. He saw the red liquid was still only half sank, so he pressed the blue button beside the bronze and moved toward the table to put down the large bag. He barely missed Jacob's clenched left hand, or he would have been overreacting right now. On the other hand, Jacob still didn't know he had just dodged a bullet because of Decker's overconfidence. He finally opened his eyelids after 4 months. After a momentary confusion, he suddenly remembered what had happened and just happened to see Decker's back. He flinched for a moment before instantly understanding what had happened. I fell into hibernation. Jacob quickly saw the sinking red liquid, and he knew he was right. Then he suddenly remembered about the thing he pulled from his forehead before falling into hibernation. He felt inside his left fist a small stone-like object, not some parasite bug he was guessing before. But he moved quickly as he opened his mount, put whatever was in his fist between his teeth, closed his mouth, stood straight like status, and closed his eyes. Jacob knew he only had time while Decker's back was still facing him, so he quickly reacted. He didn't want to clash with this brown devil right now, not while he was still behind glass with unknown sturdiness and that pig freak was still gawking at him. However, his movement was clearly noticed by Pighead, and since Decker didn't give him a new command, he moved toward the button panel, so he could press the black button since Jacob had just made a strange movement. Luckily for Jacob, Decker clearly caught the movement of Pighead, and he yelled in perplexity, You, empty-brained chode, what the hell is wrong with you? First, you nearly let my precious subject die, and now you're going to waste my precious rare-grade healing liquid. Go back to your fucking cell and activate the blue liquid, useless crap. Decker cursed Pighead many times and even kicked him with his little legs to release some of his frustration. Jacob calmly listened to Decker's curses and sneered inside, yes, just cage those pig muscles. Without him, I don't believe you can put on with my surprise attack. Jacob's heartbeat didn't increase this time as he remained static while he felt a new liquid start to fill the glass cell. I will only get one chance at this, and if I fail, I might as well commit suicide and then fall back into this brown fucker's hands. Jacob was ready for a do-or-die situation. Since Decker would wait for him to wake up, he knew he had time to make a solid strategy. First, Jacob's attention was drawn to the object in his mouth. He dared to bluntly put it in his mouth because even after months of remaining in his hand, this thing didn't do anything, and it was a solid object, like stone. All he felt was 2 needles on this object's surface, and he could guess that this thing was probably planted by hands, and it wasn't alive like a parasite, and it probably only worked on the brain or the same spot it was planted in his head, that's why it was harmless right now. Jacob soon discovered that this thing was only half a centimeter in size and was very solid and diamond-shaped. Even with his teeth, he couldn't seem to damage it. This thing can do wonders if I'll use it right. Jacob's mind was working at lightning speed at this moment. He wasn't just some random old man. He was the freaking tycoon and emperor of the weapon industry, Jacob Steve, who shocked the world with his wits and discovery or couldn't have reacted so quickly, only within seconds after just waking up. 2 comments 0 votes send gifts. Download the app for greater interaction. You can chat with me about my writing experience apart from the comments section. Wahi. Download app now. Positions changed. Decker quickly changed into a new green outfit that looked like a grown, and after sorting out all the things he had collected and bought from his 8-month journey, he sat on a wooden chair comfortably. He looked at Jacob's glass cell, which was now filled with light blue liquid just like Pighead's cell, and a light glint flashed past his eyes. Should I wait for him to awake, or should I just test him as is it? Decker mulled over this choice. He picked up the blue wooden cubic box from the table. It was 1 foot in diameter. He slowly opened it, and inside was a black rectangular device, which was 8 inches in size. It had a 5 inches black display, and round, shining red buttons were on the other 3 inches of the black area. Right below these 4 buttons was a tiny needle, which was hollowed from the inside. Decker caressed this device delicately, like it was his woman's bosom, and mused. Although this bloodline scan scale is of a rare grade, it still cost me half of my fortune, and I can't even find it easily in this barren place. Whatever, as long as this last experiment succeeds, I will need all the data I want, and then I can leave this damn place. Once I become powerful enough, I will make those arrogant bastards tremble beneath my foot. Decker's eyes were filled with hysteria as he remembered something unpleasant and repulsive. He couldn't remain calm after that and stood up. Why the hell would I need to wait for my slave? Decker mumbled as he pressed the bronze button again, and the blue liquid started to sink again. Jacob was utterly awake as he remained static while he felt the blue liquid keep sinking, and he could breathe again. He knew this was his only chance, or Decker might notice something amiss as time passed. Decker was entirely oblivious to Jacob's ambush plan. He blindly believed in his strong hearing ability. He could have easily detected Jacob's fast heart rate, but Jacob had completely controlled his nerves, especially his heart rate, after controlling the mysterious energy for months. Likewise, he deeply benefited from it, unbeknownst to him. After 3 minutes, the liquid finally sank completely, and Decker pressed something again right beside the glass cell and then finally started to slide down, revealing Jacob's naked, skeletal figure. Decker still didn't notice anything amiss with Jacob. He coolly extended his hand toward Jacob's right hand to grab it. But something entirely out of Decker's wildest imagination happened at this moment when Jacob's eyelids snapped open, revealing his icy amber eyes, and he quickly grabbed Decker's brown hand with a powerful grip. Decker was startled at that moment with this sudden turn of events, and this moment was all Jacob needed to react. Jacob's right hand, which was formed into a scissor-shaped, moved at full speed, and without any delay, his index and middle finger were stabbed into Decker's wide-opened eyes. Ah! Decker shrilled and screamed like a pig when he felt Jacob's bony, sharp fingers in his eyes. Jacob still wasn't done. He released his grip from Decker's wrist, forming a punch, and let loose a sharp husky sound before throwing a punch filled with hatred and resentment toward Decker's pointy chin. Decker felt like he was struck by a sledgehammer and instantly fell to the ground, bleeding from his eye sockets and mouth. Jacob has completely caught him with his pants down, and with the boxing and defensive skills he learned in his past life, he quickly manhandled Decker, who was small and weak without his tricks. However, Jacob still wasn't calm, despite seeing listless Decker on the floor. He knew he wasn't dead and didn't want him dead either. Jacob opened his mouth and spat something in his hand. He could finally see the cause of his suffering. It was a red diamond-shaped object with 2 needles on one side and a very tiny black symbol on the other side. Jacob didn't know what it was, nor did he care at this moment. He looked at Decker with a vicious smile on his bony, pale face. He sat on him and, with bare nails, he dug right in the middle of his forehead. Crimson blood gushed out, but Jake was utterly unfazed. He would never show mercy toward his enemies, and Decker was someone he hated the most. Even in his previous life, he never thought of killing someone this much as he thought of killing Decker. Jacob placed the diamond-shaped object right where he dug Decker's skin and pressed it with full force, and when he felt he was properly stuck on the right spot, he vaguely saw a very tiny black light. Oh, it's active like this, huh? Jacob was finally assured. But he still wasn't done. He started to take off Decker's clothes. Decker was plump, as his brown torso was also filled with some battle scars. Jacob's eyes landed on two bracelets in Decker's hand. One had a black ribbon, and a red ruby was embedded in it, which reminded him of that diamond he had just entered into Decker's forehead. This should be the remote control of that zone. Jacob quickly took it off and saw a tiny black mark right in the middle of this ruby, the same as the red diamond. Decker wore it on his own wrist, and then his eyes landed on the second bracelet, which had a black band and a dark blue gemstone embedded on this one. But this one looked more exquisite, and there was a small string of tiny symbols in its center. This should be the controller of that pig muscles. Jacob took off this bracelet as well and put it on. Lastly, his eyes landed on a black chain and black pendant, which Decker was wearing. The pendant was a pitch black circle, 4 cm in diameter. However, when looking at it closely, it was delicately carved in an extremely vivid snake that was eating its own tail forming this circle, and it looked very vivid, as if it was alive. Furthermore, there were marks left inside the interior of this snake circle, which clearly implied that there was a piece missing from this pendant. Jacob instantly felt he had seen this kind of symbol before, but he didn't seem to remember where. Nonetheless, he also pocketed that chain and pendant, and after making sure Decker had nothing left on him, he put him into his own glass cell and released the blue liquid. Jacob never wanted to kill Decker in the first place, not after he got his hands on the slave stone. Jacob wore a stiff smile as he looked at the unconscious Decker in the glass cell. Their positions had changed now. I'm going to enjoy this. 9 comments, 0 votes, send gifts. Blood analysis. After Jacob was finally done handling Decker, he felt immense relief as all the adrenaline rushing through his veins finally started to calm down, and he felt tired. He still couldn't believe that he had managed to thwart a monster and completely turn the tables on him. He slowly walked toward the same chair where Decker was just sitting a couple of moments ago. Sigh, this feeling for walking again. Jacob let loose a heavy sigh like an old man as he completely relaxed on Decker's chair and closed his eyes, and for the first time after he reincarnated, he felt alive and free. Freedom, Jacob's hoarse voice rang at this moment. This was probably the first word he ever spoke. His voice was powerful for his bony self, as Jacob's old man-like demeanor made it even more imposing. A happy smile suddenly emerged on his pale face. It was a sincere smile of happiness. I can finally say I got another shot at life, and I'm going to live it to the fullest, just like my old life, and who knows, I might be able to live much longer in this mysterious yet magical world. Jacob's smile widened. He didn't seem like someone who just popped an imp goblin's eyes and beat the crap out of him. He just looked like an ordinary young man filled with grand ambitions. After enjoying the moment for a while, Jacob smiled wryly at his naked self. In his happiness, he almost forgot he was still in his birthday suit. He looked around and clearly saw what was in this small room beside that torture table, and his old home. There was a small closet at one of the corners right below the stairway and a shelf on the other corner of the table. Besides these 2 extra things, there wasn't anything except the new large bag Decker had bought, or Decker's old bag. Both of them were lying on the torture table at this moment. Jacob completely ignored everything else and went straight toward the closet and opened it. He would not feel comfortable without any clothing on his body. This closet has only 3 shelves, and only Decker's size clothes are in it, which won't fit Jacob, who is 2 heads taller than Decker. In the end, he picked up 2 black cloaks. He rolled one around his waist and draped one on his shoulder. Much better. Jacob felt comfortable after hiding his assets, and finally paid attention to those 2 bracelets he pocketed from Decker. He first looked at the dark blue gem bracelet. He didn't know how to use it or how to make himself its owner, but he never saw Decker using them openly since he always commanded him literally. Jacob tried to imitate Decker and speak closer to the dark blue gem bracelet. Pighead, come out. He looked toward Pighead's cell with anticipation, but nothing happened. Jacob's brows frowned a little and mused, could it be I need my blood to form some kind of connection with these gems? He picked up a knife-like tool from the steel tray and perked his finger, and his blood dropped on the dark blue gem, and it instantly absorbed it. Jacob's eyes flash as he quickly drops his blood on the red one, and it also quickly absorbs it. Although he didn't feel anything, by those two gemstone reactions, he knew his theory was successful. Pig head, move your head. This time, there was boundless confidence in Jacob's heavy voice. Pighead really moved his head after receiving Jacob's command. Hey, at least those books have some use. Jacob was quite satisfied with this development. Let's see how you escape my grasp now, little fucker. A cold glint flashed in Jacob's eyes as he gazed at Decker's cell before he averted his gaze. His eyes landed on the device Decker was carrying when he opened his cell and picked it up from the floor. It just looked like a smartphone. Could this world be as advanced as mine or even more? Jacob's thoughts wandered for a moment, but he shook his head and smirked. I'm not even outside, and I'm already thinking like this. Hey, you're just as greedy as always, Jacob. A light chuckle escaped Jacob's mouth before he pressed the buttons on the device and tried to activate it. He mused that since Decker had bought it, and it was in such fancy packing, it must be pretty expensive and essential to him. However, nothing happened, no matter which button he pressed or how long he pressed. Is it broken? Jacob murmured to himself, and his eyes finally landed on the small needle at the bottom of those buttons. Jacob remembered Decker coming for his hand at that time. Did it need my blood to activate? Jacob was fascinated and pressed his thumb on the small needle, which instantly pierced through his skin, making it even more evident that it was made for this purpose. Just as Jacob's blood entered the needle, the black screen lit up in white, and an unfamiliar yet familiar black character appeared. Numbers. Oh, I can read this language. Is it because of this body's previous owner I can read and understand this world's language? Jacob was quite sure about this. The countdown on the black screen finally ended after 9 seconds. New words appeared, which made Jacob intrigued. The blood analysis has been completed. Please press the button to check the result. Oh, is this thing like some measuring device? Jacob quickly pressed the first button, and the screen changed again. Species, human. Sex, male. Age, 23. Strength, 2 weak. He pressed the second button without delay, as he expected this much after from his bony body. Bloodline, not pure fusion. Human bloodline uncommon tier 70%. Rathound rare tier 5%. Unknown bloodline 20%. Note, please purchase a higher grade device to discover about this bloodline and more information. Unknown bloodline 5%. Note, please purchase a higher grade device to discover about this bloodline and more information. I have 2 unknown bloodlines in my body, and this device is too low grade to identify them, which means this rare tier bloodline is this device's limit. But what the fuck is this rat hound? Just what kind of shit this little shit was doing with this body all this time? Jacob couldn't help but curse Decker before pressing the third button. Next chapter. Cursed Immortality. Wahi. Enjoy this book so far. Sign in.